Well, welcome everybody to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio, and today is Monday, December 16th, 2024, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you in the queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. Excuse me. And I know it's a little bit confusing with, do I sign in on Blog Talk? Do I sign in on Zoom, or do I, what? And we're kind of playing it by ear as well. We're as long as Blog Talk's working, that'll be, the first go. When it's not working, then we do the Zoom. And if they have the bugs worked out, we did some tests on Saturday. And if they get all the bugs worked out, then we'll go live on Needle. So, I swallowed wrong. So Michael's with us. I'm going to say welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome, everybody. Delighted that we get to play again. And we're still working on, actually, Jeanie and Dr. Tim are still working on how we're going to proceed. It looks like Needle is going to be our best option, and we're going to be doing it. Did you talk about doing the series we're going to do over Christmas?
No, I got choked and had to quit on that.
Oh, okay.
What I did, because Needle is just live shows, I have uploaded the MP3s to Poditize. They're set for the day that they're supposed to play. So, and I'm going to change the website to Podbean.
You mean Podbean, honey?
Yeah. Yes. And so I've already uploaded them there, and they're set to automatically start on the designated days. And I'm changing our website to note that 26th of December through January the 3rd. And that's the healing through relationships and the codependence, communication, and the mind shifters and still point. So those will be the shows that will be played while we are in Nashville. And so you'll be able to still get them if Blog Talk is down. They will still be out there, so Dr. Tim won't have to try to figure out what to do with them when we're gone.
Right.
So anyway,
we're going to be leaving here in Bristol on the 26th of December, the day after Christmas, and heading to Nashville. And at 6 a.m., Ryan, our son, goes in for what they're saying is probably going to be about a 14-hour surgery. So we'll ask everybody, if you would, to really breathe with us and hold the space for him. And we're going to be spending that full week there, and our whole attention is going to be on Brian and Gabby and Aria, Rain, and Lincoln. So that'll be our focus for that week. We're not going to touch the radio show at all, but we've taken a whole series of workshops that normally have to be purchased from our website. These are the original workshop recordings that are CDs or DVDs or streaming workshops that you would buy on our website. And so we're doing a whole relationship week. The whole focus will be a series on relationships, on forgiveness and communication in relationships. So make sure you mark your calendar and download Podbean. That's Podbean, and select. Is it listed in Podbean, honey, as Mind Shifters, or is our name, or?
It's Mind Shifters Radio.
Mind Shifters Radio. So if you just select that in Podbean, you'll be able to listen to those for that full week. And then we'll be back live. So beyond that, we'll check in and see if anyone has any comments or questions on anything we've been covering. It was felt a really sweet session, Susan, if you're with us, that looking at unwinding some of those deep generational springs and your willingness to do that. I think it was a powerful process for everybody to observe and, get another level of understanding of where we want to go with this work into the very deepest places and unwind, let loose of, forgive every generational inclination that is within us. And the desirability of doing that, the last thing that the non-being mind, the mind that's, programmed by the culture to live in blame and to live in guilt and fear and avoidance, the last thing one wants to do is look at what's going on inside. But when we do crazy things, because we haven't resolved what's going on inside, we literally end up destroying ourselves. Remember that every energy you engage in is an energy that you, at some point in your life, have placed within yourself and or has come to you through your genetic process. And, that last session that we did, the repeated message that Yeshua offers, with whatever measure you measure, it will be measured unto you. If you've measured into your structure something based in pain, then the first thing you want to do is to go after and learn to breathe into and forgive, remove that pain. Because those crazy things that we tend to do out of our dissociated disease processes, energies that are held somewhere within the body, the mind, and the nervous system, literally, those energetic patterns in our structure are the things that death are made of. And one needs to let go of focusing. Every time that comes up, that little breath that holds and goes, them, stop the focus on whoever you're blaming and ferret out and forgive whatever it is in you, or you're literally dead. This is your actual physical life depends on this. If you seek to harm another, Yeshua said to Peter, if you live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. If you seek to harm someone else, that energy passes through you first. And any attempt to attack another is literally, energetically, an attack upon yourself. Saying 94, he who seeks shall find. If you're always seeking to find somebody to blame and attack, then attack is what will be open to you. So if you engage in the cause, it produces a result. That's just the law. That's just the way it works. And as you change those dynamics within yourself, then your whole structure, your whole behavior, your whole inclination to activity will tend to change. And when you seek to heal, then what you are going to find is the opportunities to heal. So saying 95. Well, let me check first. Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up? Anything happening in the chat room?
It's quiet on this front.
Okay. So saying 95. We're getting into the closing sessions on this book of Thomas. 95. If you have money, do not lend it interest, he says, but give it to him from whom you will not receive it back. And we go, well, what are you talking about? Well, you'll notice that Yeshua did not give this prescription to everyone. He had wealthy friends. How do we know he had wealthy friends? Well, one of the ways you can tell, do some research on why the soldiers at the crucifixion gambled over his coat. Normally, what they would do, if someone was coming for the executioner, they had rags that were sewn together. That was the clothing that many had. And they would simply tear those rags up and, share them. But they gambled over his cloak because it was a one-piece garment. It was valuable. It was expensive. Now, greed is a major issue for many people. So those for whom greed is an issue, this would be his prescription. Give it away. Oh, but no, I can't. Okay, now that you notice you're holding your breath at the thought of giving it all away, and your greed comes up, now you can begin to apply forgiveness to your greed. And beyond that, lended interest, been called usury. And we've got a culture that says, well, as long as it's not too much, then it's not usury. It's only if it's over a certain percentage. But in that culture, they understood the mechanics of how abundance worked. Usury was not allowed because it destroys cultural stability. What are you talking about, Michael? Well, this is something we go into more in our laws of living class. But if you have a symbol of wealth, let's say you have a symbol of wealth, it's a little green piece of paper about 5 inches by 2.5 inches, and it has a picture of a dead president on it. It says $100. That piece of paper has absolutely no value. It is worth nothing. And you'll notice it doesn't say money on it. Nowhere on that piece of paper says anything about money. Money is a very specific thing, but we've been brainwashed and don't understand this. Actually, does anybody know what a dollar is? Oh, it's one of those green pieces of paper. No, go look at it. It's a Federal Reserve note. If you look, back at it's been slippery. If you look back I'm not remembering exactly, 1960s, you'll notice that it's a demand note, and a note is evidence of a debt. You notice it says Federal Reserve note. There was a time when those notes had printed on them, pay to the bearer on demand $1. Well, it says $1 on it, so it must be $1. But if I'm the bearer of that note and somebody's going to give me $1, this must not be $1. Well, where's the confusion here? Been a really slippery game played by the banksters. $1, by definition, is actually 577 grains of silver, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly. Something that has value. That's not a symbol of value. That's something that has long-term enduring value. The Federal Reserve note, which most people have come to call $1 because notice there's a lot of conversation right now about shutting down the Department of Education. You got to keep people ignorant if you're going to control them. That Federal Reserve note is a symbol of wealth. And if you have a society that gives increase, i.e. usury, to that symbol, the symbol itself creates no actual increase, right? What do they call it when you attribute a value to something that produces no value? It's called inflation. If something is deemed to be of greater value today than it was yesterday, but there was no actual increase in the value of that thing, you now have the definition of inflation. Now recognize the increase has to come from somewhere. Somebody has to pay, which means provide that value for nothing because someone else gathered the increase and put it in their pocket. This leads to poverty and scarcity. You You go back into the scriptures, and the scriptures talk about the land is mine, do not buy or sell it, and says that each person has the right to as much land as they can use, occupy, and possess. What does that mean? Well, you'll notice that people are working on inflating the value of land. Oh, I have a house that I paid $15,000 for, and now I can sell it for $500,000. Look, I made $500,000. Well, if you made $500,000, where did the $500,000 come from? It had to come from somewhere, because the thing itself has created no increase in value. And that means somebody gets ripped off for it. And that's where the poverty comes in. If, in fact, the scriptural statement, each person has the right to as much land as they can use, occupy, and possess. If someone has 10,000, how can you use, occupy, and possess 10,000 acres of land? Well, but if you got the money, you should be able to buy it. Well, is that really lawful? Okay. Oh, you have symbols of wealth, pieces of paper worth nothing, and you out and buy that land which has value, and somebody else is left landless. Now you have poverty. And all of that leads to greed. So if you're giving, in essence, what Yeshua is saying with this lesson is, if your giving is without reservation, as you give, so you will receive. Your receiving will be without reservation. There's also saying that the hole you give through is the hole you receive through. If you sow in cheapness, cheap, no thought of abundance, grasp, gather, grasp, then you send a message to the universe, the only way I can gain is by grasp and gather. When you sow in abundance, you send a message to the universe. The hole you give through is the hole you receive through. And you've opened the space for receiving to happen. So again, not saying 95. If you have money, do not lend at interest, but give it to him whom you will not receive it back. And now the opportunity to heal greed is presented, and the greed that would steal one's human life from them, healed, is far more value than whatever was loaned or given. Sow in abundance, reap in abundance. And then saying 96. The kingdom of the Father is like a woman who took a little leavening and hid it in a meal. She made large loaves of it. He that has ears, let him hear. That word heaven can be properly translated as expansion. The kingdom of expansion is within you. You need to purposely enter into it, consciously choose to engage it when the outer world is always tantalizing us with distractions. You remember when Yeshua talked about prayer, clearly is not putting order into the cosmic gift catalog, but is an activity that you do that aligns you and brings you into a space of resonance with the Creator. He said, when you do that, go into the closet and close the door. In other words, it's an internal action. It's not something to be done out there in the world. And then he says, and the Father that sees what is done will reward. As you do your inner work, as you go into yourself, go into your own unconscious, you do the inner work there, and there will be great reward. And parcel of the gift, not only to yourself of doing your work, but of being of support of others is that each step that you take that brings, or should I say uncovers, the presence of active love in you brings a stronger energy of active love into the world. And each person that finds that path, enters that gate and does that piece of work, opens a doorway for every other person to also make that journey, to move forward in truth. So this particular parable takes the leavening, which is just, in the word specifically, there's a contrast here. Little leavening, large loaves. Making subtle energetic shifts within yourself. Not buying into something happens in your world. When it does, it resonates something you don't want to deal with. You hold your breath, and you squint, and you shut things down, and you don't want to feel, and you don't want to speak, and you don't want to own it, and you got a whole conversation going on in your head about why it's somebody else's fault. That's the time to stop and go, oh, I need a little leavening here. I'm going to go into the closet. I'm going to go into this hidden place inside of me. And as you do that, in this particular parable, the large loaves are speaking of the size of the reward for the little bit of work that has to be done. So this kingdom expansion is within you. Do those small pieces of work that open the large spaces in you and watch the rewards that come. Saying 97. Yeshua said, the kingdom of the Father is like a woman carrying a jar full of meal and walking a long way. The handle of the jar broke. The meal poured out behind her on the road. She was unaware. She knew not her loss. When she came to her house, she put down the jar and found it empty. Where do you go with that? That's like the kingdom of heaven. Carrying a jar, the handle breaks, I lose all the meal, and I get there and find out it's gone. What's he pointing at here? He's inviting people to let go of looking through the eyes of the goals in the outer world. There's a sweet story about an old farmer whose grandson comes to stay with him every summer, and the grandson just adores his grandfather. And one of the things the grandfather does is he sits for hours at a time and reads his Bible. And the kid's like, he takes the Bible and he reads and he reads and he reads and he reads, and it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Why? So one day he goes to his grandfather and says, why do you do this? Why do you spend all this time? And knowing that the boy would not understand, didn't have the eyes to see nor the ears to hear, he didn't cast his pearl before swine. He didn't throw something out to someone that was a waste of time. He assigned the boy a task. He said, son, see over there by the fireplace, the coal fire over there? You see that coal basket? I want you to take that basket, go down to the river. There's a river running through the property. I want you to fill it up with water and bring it back here. Well, it's a basket. And the kid says, but Grandpa, what? I mean, how could I do that? And he said, well, you'll just have to be fast. I'm giving you an assignment. This is going to strengthen you. So the kid takes the basket down to the river, and he fills it up with water, and he rushes back. And when he gets back, the basket's almost empty. So, son, you better get back down to the river. I want a full basket when you get back here. So the kid goes back down to the river, and fills the basket up with water, gets back again, and it's almost empty. He does this 4, 5, 6 times, and finally he's exhausted. Says to his grandfather, but look at this, is just such a waste. Look, there's no way I could do that. And the grandfather says, yes, but notice the basket's now clean. This parable points to the fact that sometimes what's going on in the outer world is not what it's all about. He's pointing to, the old man with the basket was pointing out that to the son on a practical level that he was cleaning up his own mind as he did the reading that he did, which the son found, or the grandson found, to be empty. So he found a way to communicate to him that his inner being needed to be cleansed and cleaned. And so he gave him a task that was meaningless and impossible in the outer world. And so Yeshua is pointing the same lesson here. He's telling people what this community of love, which is called the kingdom of heaven or the kingdom of the Father, is like. It's like a woman carrying a jar full of meal. And she goes miles and miles and miles, long journey. She lost all the meal. She did not know she even had lost it. When she came to her house, she put it down and the jar was empty. How does that become like this community of healed minds, hearts, and bodies? The interaction in the world, i.e. carrying jar, is not what it's about, any more than bringing a full basket of water back to the grandfather was what that assignment was about. It was about cleaning the basket. It's about something totally and completely different. And the willingness to continuously cleanse what is within you. Jeanie and I watched an interesting film last night. It's a freebie on YouTube. It's called Christmas Story. And it's I believe it was a Finnish story. In any event, it's about a young man named Nicholas. He's probably about 6, and he has a beloved sister, and the sister is sick, and the father gives the boy his watch and explains time to him. He says, here's when we'll be back, so you watch the time here. And it's in the dead of winter, and the sister is sick, and they go out across the ice to go and get help for the child. And the next day, the neighbors come and inform him that his parents and his sister got lost and broke through the ice in the night and are dead. And I noticed for me, it was a powerful opportunity, to think about the grief, the tragedy, the loss engaged in all of that. And I found it was a place for me to just breathe and invite the interpretation and the emotion of grief that it moved in me. That such a tragic loss. And so we can find in every circumstance a place to open ourselves and to let the burden, which in this story would be the grain that was in the jar, to let that go. And every circumstance that opens a space in you for something to move that's less than love, that's the place to choose to breathe. That's the place to stand in willingness. That's the place to allow your own unconscious to open and to process through the energetic patterns, to empty yourself of pain and trauma. And the story was very sweetly done. Nicholas, of course, it's Christmas time. This young boy has no home, and they're in a village where everybody's dirt poor and nobody can take care of him. Nobody can raise him. So one man in the village, one of the elders of the village, has an idea that comes from love. And he suggests that perhaps each of the families, he counts out the families that are at the meeting. He says each of us could certainly sacrifice and take care of and help to raise this boy for 1 year each and move from family to family. And the town agrees. And so family by family, at Christmas each year, the boy moves to another house. And he's so appreciative that he's handy with a carving knife. He begins to carve gifts for the family that are taking care of him. So out of his pain and his brokenness came this flow of generosity. And each time he would move to a new family, he would leave a carved gift for each of the children in the family that had taken care of him that year and the years before that. And so it became a tradition and it grew. And so out of the brokenness of that experience, and it's a really just beautifully done film, out of the brokenness of that experience, when love appears, a transformation occurs that creates a tradition that, today we call St. Nicholas, making wholeness out of brokenness. And sometimes the things over which we appear to be broken really are about as meaningless as the grain that was in the jar that this woman was hauling. It's grain that was leaking. Someone might be grief-stricken over the loss of that food. Yeshua wasn't trying to explain something of the world's abundance and of the world's substance. His point with this story was, this is what the community of love, this is what the so-called kingdom of the Creator is. It is emptiness to the world. And when one is emptied of the purposes of the world, then they become filled with the state of being And they realize that life is about, rather than getting something from the world, life is about delivering this state of being to the world. And that when each of us does that, then we truly have a world of abundance, rather than fretting over the content of the jar. So for me, prepping this particular passage today was kind of interesting after watching that film last night, for me, how it fit together and how brokenness created this old tradition of St. Nicholas. And if we really truly tap into our purpose, what we're really here for, what is it in the world that your unique created essence is here to deliver to the world, rather than what are you here to get from the world? Imagine a world of 7.5 billion people, each one, let's use the modeling of the St. Nicholas story, each one knowing who their purpose is, knowing, what their purpose is, and fulfilling that purpose. Imagine each one contributing as much as this whole story of, and this whole expression of St. Nicholas brings to the world, especially to the children of the world. And are you going through the world leaking away your gift, what you're really here to give to the world? Back in the early days of doing this work, I charged from all of my workshops. Nobody got into my workshop if they didn't have money. I was brought up in a world where I believed that the goal was, make money. That was it, and I was in the business world. And when I walked away from the business world and started teaching, nobody got into my workshops without cash on the line. Because after all, that was what it was about. And then when my son was born, and I had the thought, he was born at home, delivered into my hands, and shortly after event, it occurred to me that if somebody doesn't do something, there isn't going to be a place for my son to be raised. The world was pretty crazy back then, 40 years ago, as it's pretty crazy right now. But why is it crazy? What if 7.5 billion people woke up tomorrow morning and said, oh, here's what I'm here to bring to the world? Now, when I changed my business model teaching this work from I didn't go anywhere if somebody didn't pay the expenses, and I didn't do a workshop if somebody didn't put money on the line. And then after that, understanding that if somebody doesn't do something, there isn't going to be a place for my son to grow up. Get into doing our workshops free, literally going anywhere on the planet I was invited, paying my own expenses, and the workshops are done free. And I've had people who are like, Michael Rice, are you nuts? It's not the way the world works. No, I'm not nuts, but I realize I have a purpose and I'm going to do it. It isn't dependent on people's money. What's your purpose? Are you doing your purpose? And are you depending on people having to give you money in order to do it? Is there a gift that you're here to give that regardless of what money circumstances are, you're here to give it? And what would happen if 7.5 people woke up tomorrow morning and did that? Now, I don't expect 7.5 billion people are going to wake up tomorrow morning and do that. But each person, each one of us who does our true purpose and brings it freely into the world is going to shift the whole process of humanity. Maybe every one of us has the abundance and the generosity symbolized by St. Nicholas to bring that abundance that is uniquely ours into the world. And in so doing, our coal baskets will be cleaned. So this journey of life I'm offering is not what it appears to be about. It's not about the stuff you have at the end of your journey. This particular lesson started out with the words, "Kingdom of the Father is like." How different would it be if each of us lived there? What are we really here for? And what I'm going to invite everyone to do, well, let's just check. Miss Jeanie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it's still quiet.
Well, if you're out there in listener land, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. 563-999-3581. If you dial that number, you'll be listening to the show directly. And then, if you hit 1, that will put you in queue to say hello to us. A question, a comment, what's happening in your world? Is there any way we can be of support for you today? How are you breathing? Then I'm going to invite you to just close your eyes for a moment, take a deep breath. And as you do, notice what's happening in your physiology. Notice whether or not there's any tension anywhere within your structure. If there is, then allow yourself to take your breath tension. In the ancient teachings, they said the veil of the temple must be rent in twain, torn in two. And they were not talking about a purple curtain in a church. Is your body-mind unit. The veil is the barrier between the subconscious and the unconscious mind. I'm going to invite you to just allow yourself to breathe and notice tensions anywhere in your structure. And where you find tensions of any kind, simply allow yourself to breathe into that tension point. And as you breathe there, consciously, purposely, focus your breath at that point and instruct that part of your structure to soften. and with each breath to open. If your legs are crossed or your feet are crossed, uncross them. If your arms are crossed, uncross them, let them open. Breathe deeply and allow your inner eye to survey your own physiology. Is there pain anywhere? If there is, allow your awareness to flow into the space that is occupied by that pain. Allow yourself to feel that pain. And then for a moment, let yourself shift out of it being pain and just allow yourself to feel whatever that sensation is in your structure and name it just that, just a sensation. As you breathe, allow yourself to be aware of the size and the shape of that sensation. Allow yourself to be aware of the color of that sensation. Allow yourself to be aware of the size and the shape of it. And if you breathe into that, specifically target your breath into that area, can you move the energy of that sensation and change it? If you can, use your breath and allow yourself to just move that energy around. We tend to be told that certain things are physical and therefore permanent and fixed. And yet, in a world of energy, everything is always transient and moving. What is it that you need to embrace that's causing that sensation? Can you just gently take your breath to it? Gently allow it to open and yield up its contents. Breathing deeply in the area that sensation was. Imagine there's a light. And that light is both within and outside of your cells. Allow the light that is in each cell to unify with the light in each other cell. Allow that energy to spill over the edges of the cell. Enjoy the light from each other cell. Breathe deeply. Expand that light so that your whole structure, every cell is filled with light. Every cell softens and opens to that light. And that light exudes out from the edges of your body, extends beyond what you think of as your physical form. Breath, allow that presence of light and love to expand and contract. Intensify and diminish with the breath. From that inner eye, look out into your community. Intuitively look out into your community and look for the light that represents each other person in your community. And with your eyes closed, seeing with that inner eye, notice that the light that expands out from you touches the light that exudes from other people within your community. We're working here to bypass the illusions of the mind. If we listen to Einstein, he says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. Time to let go of the optical delusion and join with the light in each other person in your community. And through the act of that happening, see that light in you being strengthened as it is strengthened in each other person that your energy touches. Breathe. And as you breathe, as you choose love, as you choose to be the presence of light in the world. You remember Yeshua used the pronoun I when he said, I am the light of the world. And then the only thing he changed in his sentence, when he said, you are the light of the world, is that pronoun. Truly, you are designed to be the light of the world. And the only thing that will stop that light to all the world is the bushel basket of your own ego. As that light strengthens, imagine now it grows beyond the edges of your community until it covers the whole state that you're in. That line on the worksheet that says, when I choose love, it wakes up the love in everyone. Imagine the presence of your love, resonating the love energetically in each other person, literally throughout your whole state. There's nothing we know of on the physical plane that can stop the high energy waves that leave the mind when we think a thought or send an energy. Nothing we know of can stop that. There is an energy exchange that happens when an energy we send out touches a like energy. Each increases the other. And so as you breathe, is there anyone in your world, anyone in your life that you're aware of right now that needs the presence of that light? And I'm going to create the invitation, make the request that you extend that light specifically to Jeanie and to her son Brian as he's getting ready for this major surgery, that your light will be there of support for him. And that as you give, you receive, and that light is returned to you. Truly, you are the light of the world. Thank you for joining us. Pray the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world.